I chose to make a movie analysis about. So the movie is set in the life of 13-year-old Amelia Bennett, whose father has been making her to have a sexual or incestuous relationship with him since she was 11. When a school counselor notices that Amelia's grades are starting to drop, and she asks her why or what is going on in her home life, nothing really could have prepared Amelia's counselor for what she was about to find out. Amelia admits her secret about her father and hers relationship, causing a spiral of events in all of the Bennett's lives. At first, Amelia's mother and sister call her a liar, although Amelia is not lying. And at group home, she has to be constantly reminded that she is the victim, and she is not lying about the whole thing. Eventually, however, they seem to realize that she has been telling the truth the whole time. Amelia's father and mother, along with Amelia, all must go to therapy. The movie ends with Amelia's father admitting to Amelia that it was all his fault, and it leaves hope for the family to reunite in the future. So, what do we know about the disorder discussed in the movie? It's incest and pedophilic disorder. Arguably, while the movie is about incest, I believe that one could say that Stephen, Amelia's father, also has pedophilic disorder. Incest, as told by the Journal of Psychiatry and Neurological Sciences, is a sexual activity or assault between family members or close relatives. Pedophilic disorder is defined as having recurrent, intense, sexually arousing fantasies, sexual urges, or behaviors involving sexual activity with a prepubescent child or a child over a period of at least 6 months. So, while incest is not exactly in the DSM-5, so no diagnostic criteria can be found, pedophilic disorder actually is. The DSM-5 describes the diagnostic criteria for pedophilic disorder as an individual who has had arousing fantasies about, urges for, or behaviors with a prepubescent child or children, and the individual has acted out on these sexual desires or is experiencing significant distress or difficulty as a result of these desires. The individual is 16 years of age and at least 5 years older than the child or children noted in the criteria above. Specifications include the exclusive type, which is sexual attraction to children only, the non-exclusive type, which is sexual attraction to adults and children, attraction to boys, attraction to girls, and incestuous only. So what is the course of incest and pedophilic disorder? The course of this disorder, according to the complete ACOA sourcebook, says that incestuous relationships usually begin, for example, like in Something About Amelia, between father and daughter relationships, when one of the daughters, which is usually the oldest, starts to fulfill the mother's chores through adulthood. The father may start to have role reversal and view her as a little mother. Aside from this, not much is known about the course of incestuous relationships, other than they often last long because the victim is afraid to tell. So, what is the prevalence and incidence? According to the DSM-5, the prevalence of pedophilic disorder is unknown, but is estimated to be 3 to 5%. However, there is no research done on the incidence of incestuous relationships or exactly how often they happen. And I think this is mostly due to the fact that usually an incestuous relationship is going to be kept under wraps, because in our society, it's not okay. So what is the average age of onset? I looked all over the internet to try and find the average age of the perpetrator starting the incestuous relationship. And while I couldn't find that, I did find that Christine Courtois stated in Healing the Incest Wound that the victim's average age of onset is age 8, but it can range anywhere from infancy to adulthood. So what is the prognosis? Well, according to Kate Hadlin, in Incest, Why Am I Afraid to Tell, is that incest seldom stops by itself. The abuser can usually not stop abusing without help. So pretty much the prognosis of it would be as soon or as slowly as the victim can tell someone who can step in and separate the victim from their abuser. So what does it exactly look like? Well, this disorder is more times than not hidden from the public, like I said. The victim is usually scared to speak out, so the offender can just keep offending until the victim will tell someone who can separate the victim from the offender. So incestuous relationships are most often found between father and daughter pairs, and the victim may be told, like Amelia was told by her father, that this is the way that they should love in their family, or that if she tells, something bad is going to happen to their whole family. An incest relationship must occur between family members, and a pedophilic relationship must have the victim being a child. So what are our treatment options? According to the ramifications of incest, The treatment of incest victims must be highly individualized. Victims of incest are found in all walks of life and from all socioeconomic circumstances. There are really only two main types of treatment: individualized therapy or group therapy. So I'm going to focus on individualized therapy. This is the one that I feel I found out the most about. This is where a victim will work with a therapist one-on-one to overcome the trauma. Often it is done in 3 stages. Ramifications of incest help to enlighten me on these stages. So the first stage is safety, where the patient is protected and strengthened. The second stage is remembrance and mourning, which is recollections of problematic experiences and losses are processed. And reintegration, where the patient has integrated the effects of the past and is helped to be well positioned to move into his or her future as unburdened as possible by the trauma that has been endured by the victim. I think this treatment works best because it can go at the individual's own rate of speed rather than sticking with the group, and also because of how personalized this treatment can really get. So what is the success and effectiveness? So for the success, I found at maternal perceptions of and responses to child sexual abuse suggests that individualized therapy has a 60% success rate when dealing with victims of incest relationships. The Recovery Village suggests that individualized therapy may be more effective than group therapy, mostly due to experiencing new coping skills, overcoming personal obstacles in the way of recovery, and having interactions with others both inside and outside the family. So now let's compare the movie to this. So the mental health issue in the movie, as I've said, is incest relationship between Amelia and her father Stephen. Although I also would like to think, I also feel, that one could say Stephen has pedophilic disorder, which usually goes hand in hand with incestuous relationships. So what treatment do they use in the movie? The treatment that is portrayed in Something About Amelia is individual therapy for not only Amelia, but her father Stephen and his wife Gail. Eventually, towards the end of the movie, Stephen and Gail are placed in couples therapy in a group full of other couples like them, and Amelia is placed in group victim therapy. So what are the patient-therapist relationships? So when individual therapy is ongoing, Amelia speaks with her caseworker and the therapist that her parents are also seeing. And Amelia seems to have a good relationship with both her caseworker and therapist, wanting to move forward past the event. Although she seems to be doing much better when placed in group therapy, and realizes that she isn't the only girl this has happened to. Gail has a mixed relationship with the therapist that Amelia and Stephen both see. Because when she first goes, she feels crazy, and the therapist must constantly be reassuring her that she's not crazy, and what she has went through has been enough to make anyone crazy. Stephen, however, has a more negative relationship with his therapist. He does not want to be there. He is denying that he even had an incest relationship with his daughter, and he doesn't even want to admit that the incestuous relationship was his fault. First, he tries to blame it on his wife and how bad their marriage is failing. The therapist later uses Stephen's love for Amelia against him, however, saying that in order for Amelia to begin to forgive herself, Stephen has to admit that the relationship was all his fault and started with him, instead of like hers, like she has been led to believe the whole time. So what does an appropriate therapist relationship actually look like? Well, an appropriate therapeutic relationship looks exactly like the one shown in Something About Amelia. The therapist works with the victim or offender to overcome personal obstacles in the way of recovery, and it stays professional, always working towards the next goal. So, is it accurate? Is the presentation of the disorder and treatment accurate and realistic? I think that yes, the presentation and disorder of treatment in Something About Amelia are extremely accurate and realistic. So, what are some signs of accuracy? Well, according to Healing the Incest Wound, incest within a family comes to light. When incest within a family comes to light, it is greeted with disbelief, and they want to discreditabilite the one who is saying that they're the victim. The perpetrator usually will attack the child's credibility while emphasizing their own community and professional status. As soon as Stephen hears from Gail that Amelia has decided to tell about Stephen and Amelia's relationship, he immediately begins attacking Amelia. He says things like, "She's just a child. Why are we choosing to believe her? She's lying. She obviously made this up." then he also starts to retaliate about what a good man he is, what a great job he has the perfect family, he has the perfect American life. So, the next scene, maternal perceptions of and responses to child sexual abuse, states that an important factor which can impair a child's willingness to disclose sexual abuse is the perceived mother's support. In this case, mother's support can be defined as her willingness to accept the possibility that her child was sexually victimized and the absence of evidence of punishing or pressuring the child to deny abuse. When Amelia first tells her guidance counselor at school that the incestuous relationship is happening between Amelia and Stephen, Amelia immediately tells her counselor, "We cannot tell my mom. My mom is going to think that we're lying." So the school counselor proceeds to tell Amelia that, no, your mom's totally going to believe you. She kind of just reassures Amelia that it's okay to tell, she did the right thing. And so as soon as they get home and Amelia proceeds to tell her mother, the very first thing that comes out of Gail's mouth is, "Oh my gosh, you're lying," which Amelia wasn't. So Gail's support of Amelia doesn't come until Amelia's home from the group home, at which point at the dinner table with Amelia and Beth, Gail all of a sudden realizes that Amelia wasn't lying. In treating incest, it states that fathers are most often emotionally deprived from their families or wives. In Something About Amelia, this is exactly what the therapist suggests that made Stephen commit an incestuous relationship with his daughter Amelia. In incest-related syndromes of adult psychopathology, it states that incest victims develop a repertoire of behaviors to help them survive the incest. They learn to take blame for what has happened and exonerate the offender. Amelia does this throughout the whole movie, even though she's repeatedly told that it wasn't her fault, and then she is the victim here. She questions if it was bad that she even told. This continues until at the very end of the movie, when Stephen is made to tell her that it was actually all his fault. He started the relationship. He's the one making her commit the sexual acts. And lastly, in Healing the Incest Wound, it states that the rescue of their younger siblings from suspected or threatened abuse is a common reason that one might tell about the abuse. Victims may be unable to break the silence of their own abuse, but they may do so when they learn about the possible abuse of their siblings. In the case of Something About Amelia, this is exactly what leads Amelia to tell her school counselor. When Amelia leaves her sister to go spend the night at a friend's house, and her sister is watching the football game with her father and her friends, Amelia gets to thinking, and later within the movie, she states that she was scared Beth would be her father's next victim. So, what are some scenes of inaccuracy? According to the maternal perceptions of and responses to child sexual abuse, an estimated 30% to 80% of victims do not disclose their abuse before adulthood. In Something About Amelia, Amelia proceeds to tell her counselor at age 13, but she is only doing this because she is afraid that Beth may be next. Also, the complete ACOA sourcebook states that incestuous relationships are more widespread in families where alcohol is present. In Something About Amelia, Amelia is directly asked if her father Stephen drinks, to which Amelia immediately responds that her father rarely drinks, and she never sees him drinking much. So, how did Hollywood compare? How does the movie match up to the DSM-5? Well, in the case of Something About Amelia, Hollywood and DSM-5 stayed very close together, and while the movie was dramatized for television, it is accurate mostly with only 2 scenes of inaccuracy. However, this is not always the case. Sometimes Hollywood will not stick with what is in DSM-5 just to make for a better, more dramatized movie, rather than one that is actually realistic to real life. So what's the meaning of the movie? I believe that the meaning of the movie is to raise awareness to an issue that our culture would rather overlook than talk about. So what is the so what of the movie? I think that the so what in Something About Amelia was that when Amelia went to speak up about her incestuous relationship with her father, she was scared because he made it seem as if it was all her fault and bad things would happen to her whole family if she spoke up. I think that it was meant to show the viewers of the movie that this is a problem, and as soon as Amelia spoke up, government officials took action, and her mother and father were quick to want to dismiss Amelia's credibility and make her seem like the offender instead of the victim she is. I think this I think that this impacts society because by telling them that this is a problem and that this is the exact reason that victims are waiting until they're older to speak out rather than while the abuse is ongoing. Furthermore, I also feel that we as a society need to find steps towards finding ways to make this easier for victims. So what was the movie maker trying to communicate to our culture when he made the movie? I think that the movie maker was trying to communicate the problem of incestuous relationships in America, since they are rarely talked about, and the problem we have where victims will not easily come forward. I think this is because the movie followed the DSM-5 to a T and has very little scenes of inaccuracy throughout it. Well, was the plot made to make a point to the viewer? Yeah, I think so. I think that the plot was made to make a point about incestuous relationships, and whether we want to talk about them as a society or not, they're in our culture and they're in our everyday lives. And I think this movie was made to shed light on these problems so that the victims will start becoming less and less afraid to come forward. I think the plot was not solely for entertainment, and there was more to raise awareness for incestuousism, and so that victims would more easily come forward. So how does a serious issue like this get translated into entertainment? I think that a serious issue gets translated into entertainment when they want to shed light on a topic that is not easily discussed or that may be building a lot of controversy. The purpose of doing this is to shed light on a controversial issue or topic that may be in the closet, so to speak, or rather completely overlooked, because society would rather not talk about this issue or ignore the issue and just hope it goes away. So that being said, outside of someone commenting that having an incestuous relationship is disgusting, most people in America would rather choose to overlook an incestuous relationship rather than find help for the victims. So I feel that incestuous relationships, especially between fathers and daughters, are still something that doesn't have much light on the topic aside from 1983 when this movie came out on Lifetime. So does it raise awareness in our culture of mental health issues? Yes, of course it is going to raise awareness in our culture to the mental health illness that's being portrayed by a movie, because it will often cause controversy and because society would rather focus on the rainbows, kittens, and butterflies in life. For example, 13 Reasons Why caused a lot of controversy when the series first premiered on Netflix. However, it shed a lot of light on suicide, which is a topic that is not easily talked about in our society. And I think that is exactly what happened when Something About Amelia came out in 1983 on Lifetime. It raises awareness by just putting the issue out there without directly saying the issue. I think it is extremely effective in raising awareness because of how much controversy it raises. And the more controversy it gets, the more it gets talked about. And the more something's talked about, the more times that our society has ample chance to educate themselves on the topic. So what are my final thoughts? This movie really had an impact on me because in the town where I'm from, there's actually a whole road known for having incestuous relations. And in turn, that makes our whole town get called incest, even though we're not, it's just one road. So, however, in my town, there's nowhere for these victims to reach out and stop the abuse. The abusers just get to keep on abusing, and I think that this movie really brought that to light for me. Instead, the road is constantly made fun of by people in our city and in surrounding cities, and this movie helped to shed light for me on what these people are actually experiencing daily and what our town actually needs to be doing to help the victims in these situations. This movie has made me want to find a way to help those in our community who may need help getting out of it. Thank you.